3 weeks later, the ESS Indomitable limped into Earth orbit. The ship that left had been battle-worn. The ship that returned was nearly destroyed. Huge sections of hull were missing, replaced by temporary patches. Scorch marks covered every surface. She looked like she had flown through hell itself. But she was home, and she was victorious. The crew received a hero's welcome. Parades filled cities across Earth. News broadcasts showed the battle footage constantly. Children played games pretending to be the Indomitable's crew. But for those who had actually fought, the celebration felt hollow. In Geneva, at Earth's Federation headquarters, Captain Dae Jung, Lieutenant Hana, and Engineer Bora stood in dress uniforms for a ceremony. Medals were pinned to their chests. Speeches praised their courage. 12 empty chairs sat in the front row for the crew members who never came home. When it was his turn to speak, Dae Jung approached the podium. The audience expected a triumphant speech about humanity's superiority. Instead, he spoke quietly. "We didn't win because we were superior. We won because we were underestimated. That advantage won't exist twice. The galaxy is watching Earth now. They won't make the same mistake again." He paused, looking at the empty chairs. 12 of my crew died to earn Earth's respect. I hope we use that respect wisely." The speech made some politicians uncomfortable. They wanted celebration, not caution. But Dae Jung had seen too many battles to believe one victory meant permanent safety. At the Celestial Nexus space station, the political situation grew complicated. The Galactic Coalition split into factions. High Commander Thaxor and the Virex Dominion, surprisingly, became advocates for treating Earth as equals. Thaxor's experience with the Indomitable had changed his perspective. He argued that dismissing species based on their technology level was strategic foolishness, but others disagreed. The Nethron Republic and Quillari Collective saw Earth as a threat to the established order. If humans with old technology could defeat the Virex, what did that say about the technological superiority the major powers relied on? What if other minor species started believing they could challenge the great empires? They couldn't openly attack Earth after the demonstration, but they could work in the shadows. Smaller species watched everything with fascination. For centuries, they had been told the major powers were unbeatable. Now they had seen proof that clever tactics and determination could overcome superior technology. Some began to hope. Ambassador Taman found himself navigating dangerous political waters. He formed alliances with other marginalized species. The Corvin, peaceful traders constantly bullied by larger empires. The Sylth, biomechanical beings treated as inferior. The Lumara, energy beings without political power. Together, they created the Free Species Alliance. It wasn't a military pact, just a mutual support network. But the major powers watched nervously. Unity among minor species was dangerous to the established hierarchy. Meanwhile, Earth's military leadership debated the Indomitable's future. Some argued she should be retired with honors, placed in a museum. Others wanted her scrapped and replaced with newer vessels. Engineer Bora fought fiercely against both options. "She's more than a ship. She's a symbol. Scrapping her sends a message that we're abandoning what made us successful, our ability to adapt, to make old things work in new ways." The debate reached Captain Dae Jung, who had been promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's defensive fleet. He proposed a compromise. Rebuild the Indomitable. Upgrade her systems but keep her core philosophy intact. Maintain the redundancies and adaptability. Keep her kinetic weapons. Most importantly, use her as a training vessel. Every officer in Earth's fleet should serve aboard her to learn what she represents. The proposal was accepted. The Indomitable entered the largest shipyard in orbit, where she would be rebuilt over 6 months. While Earth celebrated and rebuilt, enemies worked in secret. Trade ships bound for Earth experienced mysterious engine failures. Pirate attacks increased along human-controlled routes. None of it could be traced to official sources, but the pattern was clear. Commander Hana, now assigned to Earth's Intelligence Division, noticed the pattern. She brought her concerns to Admiral Dae Jung. "They're testing us," Dae Jung said, studying the reports, "seeing if we'll overreact. They want us to act aggressively so they can justify military action with coalition backing. So what do? We're patient. We're smart. We defend our interests without giving them ammunition, and we build alliances." 6 months passed. The day came when the Indomitable was scheduled to launch from the shipyard. Captain Dae Jung stood on the station observation deck, watching the final repairs. The ship looked different but somehow the same. Her hull was reinforced but still showed the old scars. Her engines were upgraded but maintained the original design philosophy. Her weapons were modernized kinetic railguns, not the plasma cannons other species used. She was the Indomitable. Old but not obsolete, scarred but not broken. Daejung refused higher command positions. "My place is here," he told the Admiralty. "This ship represents what humanity needs to remember." Engineer Bora returned as chief engineer, now with an expanded team and better resources. Commander Hana became the executive officer, bringing her strategic mind to the ship permanently. The new crew included veterans from the famous battle and young recruits eager to serve on the legendary vessel. They came from Earth cities, from orbital colonies, from the Mars settlements. All of them wanted to be part of the ship that had changed everything. Then came the final test. The Nethron Republic, frustrated by Earth's growing influence, manufactured a crisis. They claimed a human exploration vessel had violated their territory and attacked a Nethron station. It was a complete lie, but the fabricated evidence was convincing. The Nethron demanded Earth's expulsion from the Coalition and the surrender of the Indomitable for investigation. Ambassador Taman fought the accusations, but the evidence was too well constructed. High Commander Thaxor supported Earth but lacked political capital after his previous defeat. The Free Species Alliance was too new and weak to provide real help. Earth faced a choice: comply and be humiliated, or refuse and be branded as aggressors, giving the Nethron justification for military action. Admiral Daejung proposed a third option. He challenged the Nethron Republic to trial by combat. If the Indomitable won, the charges would be dropped and Earth's membership secured permanently. If they lost, Earth would withdraw from the Coalition forever. The Nethron accepted eagerly. They possessed phase-shifting technology that let their ships exist partially in another dimension. They could attack without being attacked. They considered victory certain. The battle took place in the same asteroid field where the Indomitable had fought the Stormbreaker. But this time, the human crew was ready for different tactics. The Nethron warship Ethereal could shift between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. It fired from phase-shifted states, its weapons striking while it remained untouchable. But Bora had spent 6 months developing new ammunition, gravitic anchoring rounds that created dimensional stability fields. When they detonated, they prevented phase shifting in large areas of space. Commander Hana had studied Nethron tactics and found patterns in their phase shift timing. Predictable behaviors they didn't even realize they had. The battle was shorter than the fight against the Stormbreaker, but more intense. The Indomitable used the asteroid field to create a maze of gravitational anchors, limiting where the Ethereal could safely phase shift. When the Nethron ship was forced into real space for critical seconds, the Indomitable's precision gunnery disabled its phase drive. Without their technological advantage, the Ethereal had no chance. But again, Daejung did something unexpected. He offered the Nethron captain a choice: admit the charges were fabricated and face consequences, or fight to the death. Faced with certain defeat, the Nethron captain confessed. The conspiracy was revealed to the entire watching galaxy. The Nethron Republic faced censure from the Coalition. The faction that had tried to contain Earth lost credibility. Earth's position was secured, and the Free Species Alliance grew stronger. But there was no triumphant celebration on the Indomitable. Captain Daejung stood on the bridge looking at the retreating Nethron ship and felt only weariness. "We fought to be respected," Commander Hana said. "Did we win, or did we just paint a target on our backs?" Daejung looked at her. "Both. But that's the price of not being ignored. We'll face greater challenges now. Stronger enemies, but we'll face them as equals." Over the following months, the impact of Earth's emergence spread across the galaxy. Other species began adapting kinetic weapons technology. The Free Species Alliance established a defensive pact. The Indomitable became a symbol not just for humanity, but for all species who refused to accept that might made right. Young cadets from dozens of species requested to serve aboard the legendary human warship. They wanted to learn from the crew that had changed galactic military doctrine. The final scene of the story showed the Indomitable leaving Earth orbit on a new mission. Her hull was scarred but proud. Her crew was ready for whatever challenges awaited. Captain Daejung sat in his command chair looking at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there were species that still underestimated humanity. Captain Vexnor stared at his tactical display, trying to understand how the battle had turned so badly. His superior ship was damaged and struggling. The primitive human vessel, which should have been disabled in minutes, was pressing the attack. Pride and anger warred in his mind. He had underestimated them. Worse, he had done so publicly, in front of the entire galactic community. If he lost this battle, his career was over. His reputation was destroyed. Reroute all power from life support and secondary systems to weapons, Vexnor ordered. His crew turned to look at him in shock. Do it now. We're ending this. The Stormbreaker transformed from a balanced warship into a weapon with a single purpose. Environmental controls shut down. Backup systems went dark. Every scrap of available energy fed into the plasma cannons. Captain, if we take any serious damage now, we'll have no redundancies, his tactical officer warned. We won't need them, Vexnor said coldly. Fire everything. Continuous bombardment. Don't stop until their hull breaks apart. The Stormbreaker's cannons erupted with devastating force. The barrage was unlike anything they had fired before. Plasma bolts streamed through space in an almost solid wall of destructive energy. The Indomitable's hull began to fail under the assault. Armor plating melted and peeled away. Internal explosions rippled through multiple decks. Fire spread faster than damage control could contain them. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 12. The damage control officer reported, his voice rising with alarm. Structural integrity critical. Captain, we can't take much more. Crew members died in the assault. Sections decompressed. Corridors filled with smoke and flame. The ship that had survived so many battles was being torn apart. Engineer Bora's voice cut through the chaos on the command channel. Captain, we're losing structural integrity. If they keep this up for another minute, the ship will break apart. Lieutenant Hana turned to Daejung. Sir, we need to do something now. Daejung studied his tactical display. The Stormbreaker was firing everything, which meant Vexnor had committed all his resources to this one assault. The Vrex captain had gone all in, betting everything on overwhelming firepower. It was the move of a desperate commander, or an angry one. How many special rounds do we have left? Daejung asked. 4 gravity distortion rounds, 6 EMP cores, full load of standard explosives. Daejung made his decision. Load 1 gravity round and all 6 EMP cores. Target their main reactor housing. Hana's fingers froze on her controls. She turned to look at him. Sir, if we hit their reactor with that much electromagnetic interference, we could cause a containment failure. A breach, I know, that could kill everyone on their ship. 300 people. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what the captain was considering. The rules of engagement stated no lethal force, but if they didn't stop the Stormbreaker's assault immediately, the Indomitable would be destroyed and her crew killed. Daejung felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 300 Vrex lives versus 150 human lives. The choice should be simple, but it wasn't. Helm, he said quietly, calculate an escape vector for the Stormbreaker. A path that will take them clear of the asteroid field and away from the blast radius if their reactor destabilizes. The helmsman worked quickly. Vector calculated, sir. After we fire, wait 5 seconds. Then transmit the escape vector on all emergency channels. Make sure they receive it. They might not take it, Bora warned from engineering. That's their choice, Daejung replied. But we'll give them the chance. We're not murderers. We're warriors. He took a deep breath. Weapons you are authorized to fire. The Indomitable's railguns launched their payload. The single gravity distortion round hit first, creating a warped space around the Stormbreaker's reactor section. The 6 EMP cores followed, their electromagnetic pulses channeled and concentrated by the gravity well. The effect on the Stormbreaker was catastrophic. Every electrical system overloaded at once. Lights died instantly. Artificial gravity failed, sending unsecured crew members floating. Control panels exploded in showers of sparks. Most critically, the magnetic containment fields around the reactor fluctuated wildly. On the Stormbreaker's bridge, alarms screamed in the darkness. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Vexnor pulled himself back into his command chair as the ship shuddered around him. Containment at 40%, engineering reported, voice filled with terror. 30%. Captain, we're going to have a reactor breach. We need to eject the core now. Vexnor stared at his dead displays. They had lost. Completely and totally lost. He had been outsmarted, outfought, and now his ship was dying. Then his communication officer shouted, "Captain, incoming transmission from the human ship. They're sending us escape vector coordinates." Vexner's head snapped around. "What?" "They're giving us a path to safety, sir. A route that will get us clear before the reactor breaches." For 3 seconds, Vexnor couldn't speak. The humans had just crippled his ship, possibly fatally. They had won the battle. But they were giving him a way to save his crew. Why? Pride screamed at him to ignore it, to face death rather than accept help from the species he had mocked. But then he looked at his crew, saw their fear, and remembered why he wore the uniform. "All hands disengage from combat. Follow those coordinates. Emergency power to engines. Get us clear." The Stormbreaker lurched forward, plasma venting from damaged sections, limping toward the safety zone. Its reactor stabilized just enough to prevent total failure. The Indomitable held position, weapons tracking the retreating Vrex ship but not firing. Captain Daejung opened a channel. "Captain Vexnor, do you surrender?" The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Then Vexnor's voice came through, strained and bitter but clear. "We surrender. The engagement is yours." Around the combat zone, thousands of alien ships sat in absolute shock. The impossible had happened. The old human warship, the vessel they had all mocked, had defeated one of the Vrex Dominion's finest battlecruisers, and then shown mercy to their defeated enemy. On the space station, Ambassador Taman watched the conclusion with tears in his eyes. They had won. Against all odds, against superior technology, against an enemy that should have destroyed them, they had won. But on the Indomitable, there was no celebration. The crew was too busy with damage control, treating the wounded, and mourning the 12 crew members who had died during the battle. Captain Daejung walked through the damaged corridors, stopping to speak with the wounded, to thank the damage control teams, to witness the cost of their victory. He found Engineer Bora in the ruined engineering section, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the destruction. The ship she had maintained for so many years was barely holding together. "We won," she said, "but look at her. She's dying." Daejung put a hand on her shoulder. "She did her job. She protected us. She survived. And she'll be rebuilt just like always. That's what the Indomitable does. She survives." Back on the space station, the Coalition Council held an emergency session. The demonstration had shaken the foundations of galactic power dynamics. High Commander Thaxor stood before the assembly. The proud reptilian commander looked different now, humbled, thoughtful. "The humans have proven themselves worthy of respect," he said. "Their tactics, their resilience, their honor in giving their enemy an escape route. These are the marks of a species that belongs in this coalition as equals." Some voices objected. The Quillari representative clicked angrily. The Nethron energy beings pulsed with displeasure. But Thaxor silenced them with a raised hand. "Any who doubt this can volunteer to face that warship themselves. I can assure you none of us want that fight," the Council voted. Earth would receive its trade route. Earth would receive a seat on the military council. Earth would be recognized as an equal member of the Galactic Coalition. Ambassador Taman accepted with quiet dignity, but inside he felt both triumph and sorrow. They had won respect, but at what cost? Captain Daejung stood on the observation deck of his damaged ship, looking at the stars. A priority message came through on his personal communicator. It was from High Commander Thaxor. "Captain Daejung, you have impressed me greatly. But know this, you have also made enemies. Powers who do not appreciate their assumptions being challenged. Watch your back. Your war may just be beginning." Daejung deleted the message. Let them come. Earth wasn't built on easy victories. The Indomitable wasn't named for nothing. His ship was damaged but not broken. His crew was wounded but not defeated. And humanity had just announced to the galaxy that they refused to be underestimated ever again. The countdown reached 0. For a brief moment, both ships held position, like ancient warriors sizing each other up before the first strike. Then the Stormbreaker accelerated, closing the distance with impressive speed. "They're coming in fast," the helmsman reported. "Closing to optimal plasma range. Fall back into the asteroid field," Lieutenant Hanna ordered, following the plan exactly as rehearsed. "Make it look like we're trying to avoid engagement." The Indomitable turned and moved deeper into the asteroids. To the thousands of watching aliens, it looked like cowardice. Commentators on the viewing ships mocked the human retreat. Some species that had placed bets began celebrating early. But Captain Dai Jung watched his tactical display calmly. This was Phase 1. Let them think they had already won. The Stormbreaker pursued aggressively exactly as predicted. Captain Vexnor saw no reason for caution. His ship was superior. Why waste time with careful tactics when overwhelming force would work? All weapons, open fire, Vexnor commanded. Target their engines first. Let's disable them quickly. Plasma bolts erupted from the Stormbreaker's cannons, bright streaks of superheated energy crossing the distance. They struck the Indomitable's rear hull, and explosions blossomed across her surface. Damage reports flooded into Daejung's command station. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Shield generators overloading. Fires in 3 compartments. The ship shuddered with each impact. The lights flickered. Crew members grabbed handholds to steady themselves. Shield generators are failing, the tactical officer reported. Shields down to 30%. 20%. Shields offline. On the viewing ships, aliens nodded knowingly. The battle was proceeding exactly as expected. The human vessel was being torn apart. But on the Indomitable's bridge, Daejung checked his casualty reports. 0. The damaged sections had been pre-evacuated. The shield generators had been deliberately overcharged to fail dramatically. Every hit the Stormbreaker landed was on reinforced areas with no critical systems. They're taking the bait, Hana said quietly. In engineering, Bora's voice came through communications. Special ammunition loaded and ready, Captain. Hold, Daejung ordered. Not yet. Let them get closer. The Stormbreaker continued its assault, moving within point-blank range. Captain Vexnor leaned forward in his command chair, savoring the easy victory. Increase fire rate. I want them disabled within the next 2 minutes. The Indomitable continued its retreat, taking more hits. Then suddenly it changed direction. Instead of fleeing, it turned sharply and accelerated directly toward the Stormbreaker. Vexnor blinked in surprise. What are they doing? Are they trying to ram us? The Indomitable's kinetic railguns fired. Not the standard ammunition Vexnor expected, but something different. The rounds exploded before impact, releasing clouds of metallic particles into space between the 2 ships. What is that? Vexnor demanded. The Stormbreaker's plasma cannons fired again, but something strange happened. The bolts passed through the chaff clouds and their energy dispersed, weakening significantly before reaching their target. The impacts that should have crippled the Indomitable merely scorched her armor. Before Vexnor could adjust his tactics, the Indomitable fired again. This time the rounds were different. They struck the Stormbreaker's energy shields and detonated with bursts of electromagnetic energy. The effect was immediate and devastating. The energy shields, designed to repel energy weapons, actually conducted the electromagnetic pulse throughout their entire grid. Sparks cascaded across the Stormbreaker's hull. Shield generators overloaded. The entire protective screen flickered and died. Shields down, the Vrex tactical officer shouted. Generator network overloaded. Trying to restart, but the EMP damaged primary systems. Vexnor stared at his displays in shock. That's impossible. Kinetic weapons can't affect energy shields like that. But they had, because Bora's specially designed ammunition wasn't just kinetic rounds. They were carefully engineered packages that exploited the physics of energy shields in ways the Vrex had never considered. Throughout the watching fleet, the mood changed dramatically. The laughter stopped. Commentators fell silent. This wasn't going according to plan. On the Vrex flagship far from the battle, High Commander Thaxor leaned forward in his throne. What just happened? He asked his tactical advisors. The humans used electromagnetic pulse weapons delivered via kinetic rounds, Commander. They weaponized our own shield technology against us. Thaxor's eyes narrowed. Perhaps these humans were more dangerous than he thought. On the Stormbreaker, Vexnor recovered quickly from his surprise. He hadn't become a captain by panicking. All weapons manual targeting. Engineering reroute all available power to engines and weapons. We still have superior firepower and speed. The Stormbreaker arced over the Indomitable, positioning itself above the human ship. Without shields, Vexnor's strategy shifted to using his mobility advantage. Keep moving. Stay out of the Indomitable's firing solutions and pound them with plasma fire. Plasma cannons erupted in a continuous barrage. This time the damage to the Indomitable was real. Hull plating melted under the intense heat. Internal explosions rocked the ship. The casualty reports now showed actual wounded crew members. Hull integrity at 60%, damage control reported. Fires spreading on multiple decks. The ship groaned under the assault. Structural supports began to fail. In some sections, crew members worked frantically to seal breaches and prevent decompression. But this was where the Indomitable's age became an advantage. Modern ships were designed for efficiency, with integrated systems that failed catastrophically when damaged. The Indomitable was a patchwork of redundancies and old-fashioned compartmentalization. When the primary coolant system failed, Bora's team had the backup online within seconds. When starboard thrusters were destroyed, the helmsman compensated using auxiliary jets. When power conduits exploded, emergency batteries kicked in automatically. The crew moved through burning corridors, sealing breaches with portable force fields and emergency bulkheads. They worked with practiced efficiency born from real combat experience, not simulations. This ship has survived worse, Bora told her engineering teams. Keep her running. On the bridge, Daejung watched the damage reports. They were taking a beating, but the Stormbreaker was committed to an attack pattern now. Vexnor was fighting like he expected to fight, using mobility and firepower. He was fighting by the book. Daejung didn't fight by books. He fought to win. Helmsman, execute maneuver Delta 7, he ordered. The Indomitable suddenly spun, using her damaged starboard side as a shield, while rotating her untouched port side into firing position. The maneuver was violent, throwing crew members against their restraints. But it worked. The port side railguns had a clear shot at the Stormbreaker's exposed flank. Fire gravity distortion rounds, Daejung commanded. The experimental ammunition launched. When the rounds detonated near the Stormbreaker, they created localized gravity wells. Suddenly, asteroids in the field began pulling toward the Vurek ship, drawn by the artificial gravity. Vexnor's eyes widened as his sensors showed dozens of asteroids accelerating toward his vessel. Evasive maneuvers. All power to engines! The Stormbreaker twisted and dodged, but the gravity wells had created a storm of debris. Rocks ranging from small boulders to house-sized chunks converged on the Vrek ship from multiple directions. Some asteroids missed. Others struck glancing blows, but enough made contact to cause damage, forcing the Stormbreaker to focus entirely on defensive flying rather than attack. Lieutenant Hana didn't waste the opportunity. Target their engine manifolds. Standard explosive rounds, fire. The Indomitable's railguns pounded the Stormbreaker's maneuvering systems. Without energy shields to protect them, the kinetic impacts cracked armor plating and damaged thrust vectoring systems. The Stormbreaker's mobility advantage began to disappear. One engine flickered and died. Then another, the graceful, deadly battlecruiser started moving like a wounded animal. Engine efficiency down to 40%. The Virex engineering officer reported to Vexnor. We're losing maneuvering capability. For the first time since the battle began, doubt crossed Vexnor's face. He looked at the human ship on his display. It was battered and burning, but still fighting, still dangerous. And now it was moving closer. The Indomitable closed the distance, matching the Stormbreaker's reduced speed. The two ships spiraled through the asteroid field, locked in close combat where the Vrek's advantages meant nothing. Daejung opened a direct channel to the Stormbreaker. Captain Vexnor, you wanted to see what our old warship could do. This is just the beginning. We haven't even shown you why humans don't build ships to be pretty. We build them to survive. Around the combat zone, the watching alien fleet sat in stunned silence. No one was laughing anymore. The battle was far from over, but the impossible was happening. The ancient human warship was winning. The next morning, Captain Daejung gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. The small space felt cramped with everyone present, but these were the people he trusted most. Lieutenant Hana sat to his right, her tablet already filled with notes. Engineer Bora occupied the seat across from him, dark circles under her eyes from working through the night. Report, Daejung said simply. Hana brought up a holographic display of the Stormbreaker. The Vrek's battlecruiser rotated in the air between them, sleek and menacing. The Stormbreaker is their newest design. Plasma cannons with rapid-fire capability, energy shields that can absorb tremendous damage. Speed and maneuverability far beyond ours. Crew of 300 highly trained warriors. She paused, then continued. Captain, I've studied every recorded Vrek's battle for the past 20 years. They rely on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. They close distance quickly, engage with maximum force, and win through sheer power. They've never lost a one-on-one engagement. What about us? asked the weapons officer. Hana's expression was grim. We have 150 crew members. Kinetic weapons that most species consider outdated. Minimal shielding. Lower speed. In a direct fight, we lose in minutes. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew the odds were bad, but hearing them stated so clearly made the situation feel hopeless. Daejung let the silence hang for a moment, then spoke. Engineer Bora, what do we have that they don't expect? Bora's tired face brightened slightly. For the past 5 years, I've been modifying our ammunition. The Vrex and other advanced species use energy weapons. They've forgotten what kinetic weapons can really do. She activated her own display, showing different types of ammunition. Chaff burst penetrators that explode before impact, releasing metallic particles that disperse energy weapons. EMP core slugs that overload electronic systems. Gravity distortion rounds that create local gravity wells. Do they work? The weapons officer asked. In simulations, yes. In actual combat, Bora shrugged. We're about to find out. Daejung stood and walked to the holographic display. He studied the Stormbreaker for a long moment. The Vrex have been a dominant military power for 300 years. They've forgotten what it's like to fight an enemy that's desperate. They've forgotten that battles aren't always won by whoever has the biggest guns. He turned to face his officers. We're going to use their confidence against them. Lieutenant Hana, I need a 3-phase battle plan. Phase 1, make them think they're winning easily. Let them get overconfident. Phase 2, neutralize their advantages without them realizing what we're doing. Phase 3, turn their own tactics against them. Hana nodded slowly, her mind already working. Sir, this will require perfect timing. If we reveal our capabilities too early, they'll adapt. Too late and we'll be too damaged to fight back. I know. That's why you're going to plan every detail. Every move, every shot, every maneuver. Daejung looked around the room. This crew has faced impossible situations before. We survived the Belt Wars. We survived Jupiter Station. We've survived because we adapt, we think, and we never give up. Over the next 48 hours, the Indomitable transformed. Damage control teams drilled relentlessly, practicing rapid repairs in sections they knew would take damage. They pre-evacuated areas that weren't critical, moving essential systems deeper into the ship. Gunners calibrated their weapons over and over, learning to fire the new ammunition types. Each round had different characteristics. The chaff burst penetrators needed to explode at precise distances. The EMP cores required exact timing to hit enemy shields at maximum effectiveness. In engineering, Bora and her team worked without sleep. They reinforced certain hull sections while deliberately weakening others. To outside observers, the weak points would look like vulnerable targets. In reality, they were sacrifice zones with no important systems. Lieutenant Hana barely left her station. She analyzed every piece of data about Vrex tactics, looking for patterns and predictable behaviors. She created simulation after simulation, testing different scenarios. Captain Daejung walked through every section of the ship, talking to crew members. In the mess hall, he found young crew members who looked terrified. He sat with them and told stories about previous battles, about times when everything seemed lost but the crew pulled through. Fear is natural, he told them. I'd be worried if you weren't afraid. But fear becomes courage when you choose to face it anyway. When that battle starts, you'll be scared. So will I. But we'll do our jobs anyway. In the medical bay, Dr. Hyun prepared for casualties. She knew people would be wounded. She might not be able to save everyone, but she would try. On the second night, Ambassador Taemin visited the ship. He found Daejung on the observation deck looking at Earth in the distance. Captain, I want to apologize, Taemin said quietly. I let my anger make the decision. I put your crew at risk because I couldn't stand the humiliation. Daejung didn't look away from Earth. Ambassador, every crew member on this ship volunteered to be here. We knew joining the coalition meant facing powerful enemies. You gave us the chance to show Earth's worth. We'll do our best not to waste it. What if you lose? Then we lose with honor. We'll show them that humans don't quit, even when facing impossible odds. Daejung finally turned to face the ambassador. But I don't plan to lose. Taemin saw something in the captain's eyes. Not confidence exactly, more like determination. Like a man who had survived too many impossible situations to believe in certainty. Meanwhile, news of the challenge spread across the galaxy. Thousands of ships gathered near the combat zone to watch. Betting rings formed with odds running 500 to 1 against Earth. Most species saw it as entertainment. The proud humans would be humbled, reinforcing the natural order of the galaxy. A few older voices whispered warnings, species that had been around long enough to see empires rise and fall. They remembered that desperate enemies were the most dangerous. But their voices were drowned out by the laughter and mockery. On the morning of the third day, the Indomitable's crew assembled in the main hangar. Captain Daejung stood before them, looking at faces young and old, experienced and fresh. "I won't lie to you," he said. "The Stormbreaker is superior in almost every measurable way. They're faster, more powerful, better equipped. By every logical calculation, we should lose." He paused, letting that sink in. But battles aren't won by calculations. They're won by people, by crews that trust each other, by warriors who refuse to accept defeat. The Vrex have better technology. But we have something they've forgotten. We have necessity. We have desperation. We have the knowledge that our entire species is watching. His voice grew stronger. In a few hours, we face an enemy that considers us obsolete. Let's show them what obsolete really means. Let's show them that humans don't need the newest technology to win. We just need courage, intelligence, and the will to never surrender. The crew didn't cheer. This wasn't a moment for celebration. But every person in that hangar stood straighter. Fear remained, but now it was mixed with determination. The Indomitable detached from the station and moved toward the designated combat zone. The area was an asteroid field, chosen as neutral territory. Rocks ranging from small boulders to small mountains floated in the darkness. The Stormbreaker emerged from faster-than-light travel, its sleek hull gleaming. Compared to the patched and scarred Indomitable, it looked like a predator facing wounded prey. A message came through on open channels. Captain Vexnor's voice was filled with amusement. "Humans, you may surrender now. Save yourselves embarrassment. My crew has better things to do than disable museum pieces." On the Indomitable's bridge, Daejung replied calmly, "Captain Vexnor, we'll make you the same offer when this is over." There was a pause, then laughter from the Vrex ship. The countdown began. 10 minutes until the engagement started. Around the combat zone, thousands of alien ships watched, their crews settling in for what they expected to be a short, one-sided battle. Daejung looked at his crew. Hana at tactical, her fingers steady on her controls. Bora monitoring engineering, ready to manage damage. The helmsman, weapons officers, communication staff, every one of them ready. "All hands to battle stations," Daejung ordered. His voice was steady, calm. "Let's make history." The massive space station floated in the darkness, its lights twinkling like a small city among the stars. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from hundreds of alien species gathered for the yearly summit. The room buzzed with strange languages and the movement of creatures that looked nothing like each other. Ambassador Taman stood near the entrance, adjusting his formal uniform for the third time. His hands were sweating. Today, Earth would present its case for a strategic trade route through human-controlled space. After 2 years of being ignored and dismissed by the powerful alien empires, this was humanity's chance to prove they belonged in the Galactic Coalition. The chamber fell silent as the council head called the meeting to order. Taman walked to the center platform, his footsteps echoing in the huge room. He could feel hundreds of eyes watching him. Some were actually eyes, others were sensory organs he couldn't begin to understand. "Honored members of the coalition," Taman began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Earth requests access to the Corridor 7 trade route. We offer fair taxation, safe passage, and—" A loud hissing laugh interrupted him. High Commander Thaxor of the Vrex Dominion rose from his seat. The reptilian creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. "The humans speak of safe passage? Show us your fleet, Ambassador. Show us what protects these trade routes you offer." Taman hesitated, then activated the holographic display. An image of the ESS Indomitable appeared above the platform. The ship rotated slowly, and Taman heard the whispers immediately. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in amusement. Others made sounds he interpreted as laughter. The Indomitable was old. Everyone could see that. Its hull was patched with mismatched metal plates. Scorch marks from old battles covered its surface. While other ships in the coalition were sleek and smooth, the Indomitable looked like it had been built from spare parts. In many ways it had been. That is your warship. Thaxor's voice dripped with contempt. That belongs in a museum, not protecting trade routes. We have waste disposal units more impressive than that vessel. The chamber erupted in laughter. The Quillari representative, an insectoid creature with multiple arms, clicked in amusement. Perhaps humans could serve as laborers for real civilizations. You clearly cannot maintain proper military vessels. Taman felt his face burn with embarrassment. He wanted to defend his species, to explain that the Indomitable had survived battles that would have destroyed newer ships. But the laughter drowned out any response he could make. Far from the station, aboard the Indomitable itself, Captain Daijung watched the council proceedings on a monitor. His weathered face remained expressionless, but his jaw clenched tight. Around him on the bridge, his crew watched in angry silence. "Captain," Lieutenant Hana said quietly, "they're mocking us." "I can see that, Lieutenant," Daijung replied. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Engineer Bora spoke up from her station. "The ambassador is doing his best, sir. But that ship?" She gestured at a sleek Vrex battlecruiser visible through the viewport. "They have technology we can only dream about." Daijung had served on the Indomitable for 30 years. He knew every bolt, every wire, every patch on her hull. He had been a young ensign when this ship was the only vessel to escape the Jupiter station siege. 12 other ships had been destroyed that day. Only the Indomitable survived because her captain refused to give up, using every trick and tactic he knew. That captain had died saving his crew. Daijung inherited his command and his philosophy. A ship was only as old as her crew's imagination. On the station, Ambassador Taman made a decision born of desperation and wounded pride. "High Commander Thaxor," he said loudly, cutting through the laughter. "You mock our vessel. Very well. I challenge any fleet in this coalition to a military exercise against the Indomitable." The chamber fell silent. Aliens looked at each other in surprise. "If Earth wins," Taman continued, "we get our trade route and a seat on the Coalition Military Council. If we lose, Earth withdraws its application for full membership and never requests it again." Thaxor's eyes gleamed with interest. This was entertainment. "You challenge us to combat with that ancient rust bucket? Very well, human. I accept on behalf of the Vrex Dominion. Our newest battle cruiser, the Stormbreaker, will face your museum piece." He paused, letting his next words sink in. "My captain, Vexner, estimates it will take less than 10 minutes to disable your ship." Other aliens murmured in approval. This would be amusing to watch. The upstart humans would be put in their place, and it would serve as a warning to other minor species who thought they deserved equal treatment. "The exercise will take place in 3 days," the council had announced. "Standard rules of engagement. Disable your opponent without destroying them. No lethal force. First to surrender or become inoperable loses." Taman bowed and left the chamber. His legs felt weak. What had he done? He had just bet Earth's future on a single battle against a ship that was clearly superior in every way. On the Indomitable, Captain Daijung stood and addressed his crew. "You all heard that. We have 72 hours to prepare." "Captain," Hana said, "the Stormbreaker has plasma cannons, energy shields, and speed we cannot match. How can we possibly win?" Daijung looked at his young tactical officer. She was brilliant, top of her class at the academy, but she had never fought a battle where victory seemed impossible. He had, many times. "Lieutenant, what did you learn about human history at the academy?" Hana blinked at the unexpected question. "Sir, I learned about the wars on Earth before we reached the stars. About how smaller forces often defeated larger ones through strategy and what?" Daijung prompted. "And knowing the terrain better than the enemy, using weapons the enemy didn't expect." "Exactly." Daijung turned to Engineer Bora. "How many of those special ammunition types have you been developing in secret?" Bora's eyes widened. "Captain, those are experimental. We've never tested them in combat. We're about to. Get them ready. All of them." He looked around the bridge at his crew. "The Vrex think we're obsolete. They think our kinetic weapons are primitive compared to their plasma cannons. They think our lack of fancy shields makes us weak." He paused and a slight smile crossed his scarred face. "Let's show them why humans are dangerous. Not because we have the best technology, but because we refuse to quit. We take what we have and we make it work." Lieutenant Hana pulled up tactical data on the Stormbreaker. "I'll analyze their combat doctrine. Find weaknesses. I'll prepare the ship," Bora said, heading toward engineering. If we're going to fight, she'll be ready. Dae-jung sat back in his command chair and looked at the stars through the viewport. 3 days, 72 hours to prepare for a battle against a superior enemy. The odds were impossible. He had faced impossible odds before. The Indomitable had earned her name by never surrendering, never giving up, no matter how damaged or outnumbered. That tradition would not end with him. "All hands," he announced over the ship-wide communication system. "This is the captain. In 3 days we fight for Earth's honor. We fight to show the galaxy that humanity will not be dismissed or ignored. They laugh at our old ship. Let's give them a reason to respect her." Around the ship, crew members stopped what they were doing and listened. In engineering, damage control teams prepared their equipment. In the weapons bay, gunners began calibration drills. In medical, doctors readied their supplies for casualties. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew they might not survive. But no one suggested surrender. They were the crew of the Indomitable. Surrender was not in their vocabulary. 3 days until the battle. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to prove that Earth deserved respect. Captain Dae-jung looked at the distant space station where aliens were probably already betting on how quickly they would lose. Let them bet. Let them laugh. They would see soon enough what humans could do when everyone counted them out.